You're listening to The Insider, the official podcast for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Welcome. Our guest today is Mayor Shane McFarland. It's good to have you with us.
Great to be here.
We're going to talk about the 2024 accomplishments, the priorities and things that the city got done in 2024. And there's a long list of them.
It is. We probably would be here 3 or 4 hours if we had to go through every single one. So I'm excited. We're going to give a highlight of what happened in 2024 and, maybe a few things that are going to push over into 2025.
Well, generally, when you think of 2024 in the overall view, what do you think of? What stands out to you?
People ask me that all the time. Like, they'll say, what's your priority as a mayor? And it's hard to, I think when it's almost like raising your kids. When you're in it, you don't know it's the good times until you're out of them, right? And so I think it's hard to say just there's one thing that we're proud of. But, there's so many things I think that we push for, whether it be public safety. We had a lot of work on the landfill, Parks and Recreation. I mean, it was almost a year ago that we were just talking about this, that we had Snowmageddon almost a year ago, and, our team performed flawlessly in making sure all that was done. So, 2024, I think, was just an overall, it was just a good year.
Well, let's talk about public infrastructure, first of all, because as you've noted many times, that's the one thing that people tend to emphasize. They want to be able to drive from place to place as quickly as possible without congestion, which in a growing city is virtually impossible, hard to do. But the city and you and the council working hard to get that accomplished. So let's talk about, the one that was really celebrated was Tommy Bragg Drive. Yeah,
that's the new road from Racket Club Drive or the River Rock area.
River Rock Boulevard.
Yeah, that takes you through past Costco all the way to Highway 99. And that's really something, Mike, we've talked about. You can't just improve and widen every intersection. So what you have to be able to do is to find different routes for people to not use the intersections. And that's what we did with that one, which was challenging because we had to build a bridge over the Stones River. And so I think opening that opened up a couple of months ago. It was exciting just to see the traffic now that can really divert off of River Rock and be able to get to the Highway 99 area and not have to use Cason Lane interchange or intersection or the River Rock intersection. So that was something I think that it's a good thing.
And eventually, the reason why that road is so important because there will be a future bridge over I-24.
Yeah, that future bridge over I-24 goes all the way back to Middle Tennessee Boulevard. The alignment's still being worked out, but that'll keep you actually being able to get to to downtown Murfreesboro or the other side of town and not have to go through the Highway 99 interchange. Something exciting that we're really working on.
Medical Center was widened. It's a process in phases, but phase 1 was pretty much completed. And you really notice having the extra third lane is making a difference.
Yes. I'm out in that area all the time, but now going from Thompson Lane all the way back to I-24, you really have a whole nother area of ingress and egress being able to go down that third lane. So that's really helped. And then, our next section, phase 2, we start working on the tough section where we go from Thompson Lane all the way back to Broad Street. So that's something that's going to be in the planning right now to get that up and going.
And then Butler Drive was realigned because everyone's excited about a new Buc-ee's coming to town.
Yeah. And you don't realize that, how that was realigned until most people just driving out there until you really look at it. So yeah, it actually goes and it almost makes a 45-degree turn and goes all the way down sort of by the river and then back up to where the Elam Road interchange is there. And we're, everyone's eagerly anticipating beaver nuggets and Buc-ee's coming in.
I love those sandwiches, I have to admit.
Yeah. We go to Knoxville quite a bit to see our boys, and we know that now that our 12-year-old, he always wants to stop by Buc-ee's and get
in Crossville or in Knoxville. There were two of them.
Well, Sevierville. We don't really go to Sevierville very often, but that Crossville Buc-ee's, we've spent our fair share of
money there.
So, and Mike, we did. Today I just got back from Nashville, and our city manager Darren Gore and transportation director Jim Kerr went with me. We had a meeting with the TDOT commissioner, and actually the governor came and attended the meeting. So it was the Murfreesboro group, and then Smyrna, and Mayor Mary Esther Reed was there, and then Mayor Freddie O'Connell with Nashville was there as well, talking about choice lanes. And I think you're going to see, not only in 2024 the work that they've done, but in 2025 we're really going to start seeing a lot pushed out about what they're planning on doing with the choice lanes that will go from Rocky Fork Road back to Nashville. We're considered phase 2, but the phase 2 will be coming a lot sooner than what you think.
We've talked about these major projects that are kind of individual ones, but one thing you don't talk a lot about, but it's important, is the repaving of all the streets throughout Murfreesboro.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to talk about new projects, but most people also want their existing roads maintained. And this year, our street department, who does a lot of that paving themselves, and that's done through our state street aid fund that we get from the state every year from gas tax to be able to pay for it. But we paved 30% more streets this year than we did last year.
And a lot of people don't realize that in order for a signal to be implemented, or a new signal traffic light to go into a particular neighborhood or on a major thoroughfare, it requires warrants. So Ron with the traffic engineering has to do studies, and they find out. But there were several of them that were implemented around veterans. Yeah, we had
several along that Veterans Parkway area with the streets that came in, like Armstrong Valley Road, where it's a very detailed process, because people will always ask, well, hey, can we not just put a signalized intersection? Mm-hmm. And it's very there's a lot of labor that's put in to show that the traffic count is where it needs to be, that once the street light is put up, who maintains it and how they maintain it. For example, Barfield Crescent Road and Veterans Parkway, that was put up 2 or 3 years ago, but that was in partnership with the county, where that is a county road. Veterans Parkway is a city road, but they helped put the traffic light up and we maintain it. So there are all these factors that go in, but I think the last number that we had, we're up to like 167 or 168 signalized intersections
well over 100 for sure.
in the city of Murfreesboro.
And I think I-840 was backing up at Veterans, and that was the concern that a lot of people had. But we still had to do a study in order to implement the new traffic signal.
Well, we do. And then also what makes those even more challenging is when you start looking at a TDOT intersection, or an interchange.
Because the state is involved.
Those are all, and that's one of the things I think you're going to see in 2025. We talked about with Butler Drive and where the Buc-ee's, for example, like Joe B. Jackson having a lit interchange. TDOT's continually working with us to be able to light interchanges to make them safer at night. So you're going to see all this start coming up in not only that we've worked on in 2024, but what's going on in 2025.
And TDOT was heavily involved, of course. It was their project, the Highway 99 widening, which we should see open to 5 lanes sometime in January. The weather's kind of slowed that.
Yeah.
But that's a major thing that people are looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, we had that discussion today with TDOT, that TDOT's a partner of ours, but not a lot of people in our community really realize that the majority of the roads that are in Murfreesboro are all state roads. So TDOT in Highway 99, we've not had anything to do really with that project, much like the bridge over Broad, for years that project was going on. That was a state project. And the last thing that we want to do is criticize TDOT on getting needed infrastructure in our community, because we want more infrastructure. And I always joke to say I don't think you want to bite the hand that feeds you. But Highway 99 has been a really tough project because there's been so many utilities that have had to be relocated. And the email I got back today from the state, I hope we hit January. Or I hope they hit January, but a lot of that's going to be weather depending on whether they can put the final topping, the final coat of pavement down, and all the striping down.
Because of the cold and the temperatures.
Correct. They typically like to pave when it's 60 to 70 degrees, and getting a 60 to 70 degree day in January and February is really tough.
Let's talk about Parks and Rec. Many projects within the Parks Department in 2024 that I think were highlighted heavily because it's such a popular department. It's things that people want to do in the golf department, and with tennis courts, and then parks. But let's start with the golf course, which a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, the golf course was shut down almost a year. They were redoing the greens and redoing some irrigation. And a lot of people don't realize that the golf course, the greens have a lifespan, 15 to 20 years. That's as long as they'll last. And they redid that. While they were doing that, they redid some drainage. That was something that everyone was really excited about when it opened back up this spring.
You were there to tee off, I think.
Yeah, I hit one right in the water. But it looked good off the face. But no, it's something that everybody was really happy about getting that facility back up and running.
For a public course, it is really in good shape.
Yeah, it's one of the nicer public courses you'll play. And, people will, that's the thing I hear quite a bit is, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And some people like golf. Some people, for example, it's one of the things on our list here, some people like a skate park. And Murfreesboro has had a rich history long before I was ever involved with city government of having a very robust parks and recreation system. And, that was even emphasized with the opening of the skate park and the first day that you go out there. And, there's so many kids and adults who are, excited about that. So that's something that in that Old Fort Park area that we were very proud of the long process of going through and getting that designed and up and running.
The Parks Department renovated the tennis courts, adding pickleball courts, which it wasn't without controversy.
No, I'm Mike, you've been around me long enough to know that I like try to have a sense of humor, and I think it was for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or maybe New Year's. I can't remember. It was a holiday a couple of years ago that I posted that the one thing that I just wanted is not world peace, but I want the tennis community and the pickleball community to be able to live together in peace and harmony. And we took the 8 courts that were built in the 70s over at Old Fort Parkway that they're not really part of the ATC. There were 8 courts, and so we took 2 of those courts and turned them into 6 pickleball courts. And it's one of those things that the 8 courts were really not utilized all the time unless it was tournament play. And my thought is, well, that's great to have tournament play for people who are not from Murfreesboro to come play in a tournament, but my priority is to people who live in Murfreesboro. And those courts were converted to 6 pickleball courts, and they have already been used heavily.
Yeah, the demand for pickleball is huge now.
Yeah, it's just the barrier to entry in playing pickleball. I've started playing. I've been playing for the last couple of years. But, it's something that you're going to see. For example, I played out at the new Borough pickleball facility out close to the new bridge we built at Beasy. Mm-hmm. The other day I was playing. It was when the snow came on that Friday. And in the court next to me, I bet the average age of that court was probably 70. And these guys and I wouldn't want to play them. They would have killed me. They were all playing. And so I think that's the thing that we look inside of our city, that we want a citizenry that's active in any way that we can do that. That's something we want to put a priority on.
Right, I understand. The skate park and the pump station, a pump track was very popular when it was announced. People had been clamoring for it for quite some time, and it's busy all the time.
Yeah, that's something that we had worked on for almost 4 or 5 years. There was a young guy at Farrer Brothers that every time I'd go in, Farrer Brothers Hardware, he would just jump on me about why do we not have a place where kids and adults can skate. And we kept looking, and at one point there was a drawing where it was going to be under the bridge that goes over what used to be Manson Pike, right by where Bloomfield links. So it had several different thoughts about where it was going to go. And then we looked at the Old Fort Park area where the old rundown pavilions were, and that was just a natural setting for it because there's parking there. There was already a parking lot. We were able to work with Moab, was one of our partners, Murfreesboro Outdoor and Bicycle, and they've got a skate shop there that they were very instrumental in getting the community together through several different meetings. Ryan Maloney with Griggs Maloney he helped with everything, and then it just all came together. And it's something that you think about this, there's just not much maintenance to it. It's concrete and you can go out and have a good time.
And that's an example of when the council hears from the public about a need, that you do listen to that and try to implement it. It may not happen overnight, but it happens.
Yeah, it takes some time, and we're at a phase with Parks and Recreation. West Park, the West Side Park, so Veterans Park, the name that's getting ready to get started in the March timeframe. But it takes some time. But Mike, it's one of those things that you want a very robust Parks and Recreation system, but at the same time, you have wants and you have needs. And I've said this for a couple of years now. Like, we need new baseball fields and new softball fields. We've not built new softball and baseball fields since the mid-'90s.
And we're considered under the amount that we need for our population.
100%. But at the same time, it's hard for me to tell someone on a fixed income that we're going to raise your taxes to build new ball fields. So there is a need for new ball fields, but there are other needs that sometimes trump those things that we would like to do.
Like roads and infrastructure.
Yeah, roads and infrastructure, police, public safety. So those things that we really, we don't have an option. We have to do those things. And that's really where I think Parks and Recreation is right now. You're going to see the Veterans Park start. That's been a process that's been going on since 2016.
Hard to believe, but
it's been that long.
And moved locations.
And as we moved to what I think is a much better location. Everything happens for a reason. I do think this is going to be a game changer for that west side of town to be able to have that new park. And it's really going to be a community park, one that's not centered around sports. It's not centered around a ball field or a football field or baseball fields. It's walking trails, pavilions, open space, green space, all those things that will be beneficial to a true community park.
And 2 bids are out on a couple other projects that we should mention: the splash pad at Patterson Park Community Center and the softball and baseball field there at Old Fort Park.
Yep, the softball and baseball field at Old Fort Park. We're looking at redoing that whole area, including the parking lot. The parking lot needs some tender love and care. And then Patterson Park, that's something that we worked on, the green space area over by the pavilions, where we can have a splash pad in those areas. And the thing that we really try to look at, not a lot of people think about, Parks and Recreation is our 3rd largest department behind police and fire. It's easy to build these things. It's a lot harder to maintain. And that's one of the things that we've really put an emphasis on. For example, Patterson Park, the heating and air system in the pool area, I mean, it was extremely expensive to redo all that. So we're really putting an emphasis on making sure that we maintain everything that we have.
Because the sustainability is an issue as well as just the project cost, the capital cost.
Yeah, it's not probably the cheaper part is building the project. It's much more expensive the long term to maintain these facilities long term.
One project like that is getting underway is the police firearms and training facility, which is good for police officers.
Yeah, the amount of training that comes with being a public safety provider is immense. Not just police, fire is the training you have is. I mean, and I was listening to. I've been like most people, just really following what's happening in California, and my thoughts and prayers go out to all those that are. It's very sad, but I was listening to the fire chief, and the fire chief was talking about funding, and the fire chief was talking about training. And although I don't agree with everything sometimes that's said in California, she was absolutely right. The amount of cost in maintaining the level of training for your public safety providers, it's paramount in making sure that you've got a well-run department. And that's one of the things that we've done with this firearms training facility, that we couldn't find a facility that we could have in Rutherford County. And it makes sense, because who really wants to be next to a facility that's going to be shooting guns all day long? People just don't want to hear that. I remember when Big Springs was open out on Big Springs Road, and we would get complaints all the time about that shooting facility, and it wasn't even in the city. We were able to find a facility that was an existing facility that someone was going to sell. It's only like 40 minutes away, And the blessing with that is not only is it going to help train Murfreesboro's police officers, it's also going to be a resource to a lot of the people in the Middle Tennessee region that we're going to be able to rent that out and let other people use it. It's really something that's a win-win for everyone.
The city's involved in a special census right now, and we need people to go there and make sure that they give us their address and names because that's important to the city's growth and to funding.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most important question right now. It's the $1 million question. You know what that is?
What's that?
How many people live in the city of Murfreesboro?
Right. And we're trying to find that out.
We are.
And certify it.
Yeah.
But murfreesborocensus.com is where people go. And you can do it right now.
I did it. We're here in the council chambers, and I did it after a council meeting, and it took me a minute to fill out on my iPhone. All we want is your address and who lives in your house. That's it.
Pretty simple.
We're not asking for blood type. We're not asking for annual income. We're not asking for Social Security numbers. We're not asking for anything. And to tell you how important that is for every new resident that we have, in the city of Murfreesboro, it's $175. And that is what helps us keep your taxes low by making sure that we get the shared funds that are rightfully the city of Murfreesboro's.
Speaking of funds, the city secured a substantial amount of funds, I think $9 to $12 million for the Town Creek project.
Yes.
We're going to start seeing a project probably in February where they'll begin constructing, daylighting that culvert.
Yeah, and this has been something that's been worked on for the last 15 years. It's hard to believe that it's been taking that long. Back in the 50s and 60s, there was the thought that it was better to pipe everything underground, not realizing that at some point that all fails. And we saw the videos. It was really cool that there was a guy that took a drone and he flew the entire underground infrastructure piping. And Shelbyville dealt with this 10 or 12 years ago. Their flume that went under, literally, it went under the downtown Shelbyville. It failed, and that's really where we were. All these concrete pipes and galvanized steel pipes, they were all failing, and it gives us the opportunity to open that creek back up, make it more of a natural setting, and it'll end up being more of a park area downtown.
A new fire administration building on Thompson is part of that project in a way because they had to make way for not only the Town Creek project but the Keystone project there in downtown.
Yeah, don't forget Parks and Recreation. They're in that same building with Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue. And that building, for example, Mike, that was one of the really good decisions that the council made. That building's 16,000 square feet. And the number that we had gotten to build a new building was in the $20 million range. We were able to get that building for $2 million. We were able to put another $2 or $3 million back into that building, and we ended up saving roughly $10 million in taxpayer funds by repurposing something that was already in good shape. And that's the same thing that you're going to see in 2025 when the Murfreesboro Water and Resources building on Robert Rose comes into play. Something that's really, really beneficial with construction right now. If we can find existing buildings that we can repurpose, not only are you repurposing something that may be vacant, but you also can save money at the same time by doing that. And
public safety employee retention was another major issue in 2024.
Yes. The council, we've got a good council, Mike. They listen to the information that the staff and team bring to them, and very rarely, there may be things that we disagree on, but typically at the end of every meeting we'll hug and we'll move on. And one of the things that we all agreed on was making sure that our police officers and our firefighters were paid, and I set this tone. I was sitting with Darren and Craig Tindall at the time, and I just said, guys, name a time that we say, hey, what's another municipality doing? Like, we don't do that. We want to set and be the leader for our region, and for that matter, for the country, to say this is how we do things here. And I told them, I was like, well, why are we doing that with police and fire? Who cares what other people are paying? Let's make sure that our people are paid appropriately, where I get that we need to look to see what other people in our region are paying. to make sure that we're in the market. But, every time we make a decision, it's hard to say, well, what's Nashville doing? So the city council really stepped out there at our budget, and we gave a substantial police pay, and then getting some more information in the August timeframe, September timeframe, we gave another substantial increase to our to our firefighters. And Murfreesboro Fire Department recently announced it's the first time in many years they're fully staffed.
Fully staffed. So it's paying off, the decision.
Yeah, and I think it's important that it's easy to focus on recruiting new people. It's also very important to make sure that you're paying the good people that are here. And that's why in January, the city council also agreed we gave a pretty substantial increase to everyone in our city that is not just public safety. I'm proud of our fleet services department that keeps all of the police vehicles and fire vehicles and our street department up and running when they're out salting streets. I'm proud of our street department who is out there when it's dark and they're salting and brining streets. There are all these things that you don't take into account that, it's sometimes, and I think this is very important, I think the number one priority, take traffic and those things aside, people want to live in a safe community.
Right. That's a number one concern.
Yeah, so people want to know that when you call 911, I believe they don't care who
shows up there to help.
They just want to make sure that someone shows up, that they're qualified, they're trained, and they know what they're doing.
Speaking of that, the 27 firefighters were certified in paramedic training.
But think about this, though. Think about all the people who are behind the scenes of the emergency services providers who make sure that they can do their job. And our fleet services, our administration, our human resources, or employee services, there's so many people who work to make sure that those jobs can be done. Like
keeping a fire truck running on the roadway, which an investment was made for a new fire engine at Fire Station 5, I think it was.
Or our City TV3 gang that
needs new technology.
But not only that, but that technology that they get informs our citizens of what they need to do when they need help. So it's really just a circle of everyone participating to keep our residents safe.
We talked about the change in the administration building for fire and the parks, but there was also a change for the administration building of the Water Resources Department.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of moving that location to Robert Rose. That was a big commitment, too, to a building that was refurbished.
Yeah,
right?
that one, I think that was close to 30,000 square feet, 24,000 square feet. Another building, we paid about $6 million for that building. We've put about that back into it. But overall, we saved about $10 million by doing that. And it's a great location that the building was empty. It's right next to where the new road that we built, Gateway or Conference Center Boulevard.
Right, Gateway
right. Boulevard, that snakes around from Medical Center Parkway, and now you can get to Robert Rose from Gateway and not
to avoid some of that traffic.
Don't have to get on Thompson Lane.
Let's wrap it up by giving credit, especially since we just had another snowstorm back on Friday of January 10th. But it was a year ago that this same thing happened.
Yes.
And the department, the street department, Public Works, all the people that work together to clear our streets are really getting a lot of praise and credit for what they do.
They are, I would put our street department up against anyone. Back a year ago when we had a much more significant event that went on for a week almost, I was getting all these text messages and emails from people who are in different areas of Rutherford County, or really for that matter, the mid-state region, and they were saying, I don't know what y'all are doing in Murfreesboro, but your roads are better than anyone's. And I think the main credit goes to the team who's doing that work.
The crews that are out there.
But I also think a lot of that credit goes to your city council member and your administration team, because anytime that the street department doesn't ask for things that they don't need. But when they come to us and they ask for something, we know they wouldn't ask if they didn't need it.
And in December, they asked for new snow plows.
They did. And that's one of those things that we realize that, people have jobs, people have things that they need to be able to do. And when we have bad weather, we just can't shut down. and our team is one of the best, and they don't get enough credit. I mean, you drive down the road, and while we're sitting at home trying to stay warm, the men and women of our street department are out working, and the next morning you wake up and the roads are cleared, and there's a reason. There's somebody that worked overnight to do that.
Well, like you said, we could go on and on. We could probably spend an hour or more talking about the many things that were accomplished in 2024, but those were some of the highlights.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things I've made a renewed effort, and I think with City TV3 we've talked about this, we're going to do a better job this year. At least I say I'm going to do a better job really communicating on a more informal level with our residents, and that's
Mondays with the mayor.
Mondays with the mayor. We've been doing that for a couple of months now. Really quick hits on what's happening with the city. I'm going to get back to doing my Facebook Live fireside chats, although there's not a fire behind me. There used to be, but now they've gotten so busy and so many comments. I can't sit. I'm so getting old, I can't see the screen to be able to read everything. So we're going to get back to that. We've talked about with our City TV3 team that we're going to talk about keeping everyone updated on transportation projects, roads that we have control over, and maybe roads that we don't have control over. I talked with a gentleman's name is Jays with TDOT, and he's agreed to be able to come down and do more of a podcast thing on what's happening with state projects inside the city of Murfreesboro. So we're going to make a renewed effort for people to stay better informed of what's happening in 2025.
Well, thanks for being with us. You're a part-time mayor, but we all know you work full-time, and
I
we appreciate
that.
everything you do.
Man, we've got a good team.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'm going to close by just reminding you that the city's secure website for filling out the census at murfreesborocensus.com is available for you to do so. If you have any questions, you can email census@murfreesborotn.gov or call 615-893-5210. We've been highlighting some of the city's achievements in 2024 with Mayor Shane McFarland. This podcast originated, as it always does, from City Hall here in the council chambers on our many platforms, including YouTube. Our producer is Michael Nevels. You can go to murfreesborotn.gov for more information on the city. Insider is the official podcast for the city of Murfreesboro. I'm Mike Browning. Thanks a lot for joining us.